Earlier this week, during their Central Bargaining Forum on Thursday, Eskom reached an agreement with trade unions, the National Union of Mine Workers and the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, and solidarity on a 7% annual increase. But some economists have expressed shock on this. Let's bring in our guest, Gerald Mwandiambira, who's the CEO for South African Savings Institute, to talk to us even further. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. A lot of reaction to the 7% increase agreement, some believing it was a slap in the face of taxpayers. What's your reaction?
Look, I think this was an agreement which was made for the convenience of both parties. For the workers, I think it's very generous and will keep them happy for the next 3 years. And for Eskom, I think they're really trying to rebuild capacity and didn't want the distraction of a wage bargaining going wrong. So in a way, it's good for the employees, definitely. Less so for us, the consumers, because we pay for the electricity. So we're going to be paying either directly through our electricity prices through our municipalities or direct to Eskom, or we will be paying through our taxes. And that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, because Eskom has said that the collective agreement will go a long way in stabilizing the power utility, with sufficient space and time to work together and urgently address some pressing challenges. But the irony is that load shedding is still a factor and the consumer is affected. How does one now justify the increase?
Look, I think it's justified mainly for continuity purposes. We've had a lot of reports around Eskom and sabotage and disgruntled staff and low staff morale. So I guess this was one of those ways in which they're trying to bring together the staff of Eskom to focus on resolving the load shedding problem. Hopefully, they will be motivated by this increase, which is far above what the rest of the country is enjoying right now. And it might solve the energy crisis and hopefully start helping the economy to grow.
Eskom's also said that it's worth noting that this is the first time in more than a decade that the parties have reached some form of agreement. What do you make of the timing, looking at the current economic climate?
Look, I think the economy does not really speak to funding such a generous wage offer when most South Africans cannot even contemplate a 7% increase, let alone for 3 years compounded. However, you have to look at it in the face of the past years when there have been disputes between the wage bargaining exercise between the unions and Eskom, where they've caused further disruption to load shedding. And I think that's one of the reasons why they were quick to the table to sign, because Eskom knows that with the precarious position the country is in with load shedding, the last thing they needed was more disgruntled staff pulling or showing their muscle by being able to exasperate or worsen the situation.
And what better time? I mean, we also had heard how Eskom was saying that they have a bloated staff complement, and that conversation quietened down and no moves were made. I suppose it would have been quite dangerous to not really hear the unions out, because it could have exacerbated the situation and load shedding could really have been worse during the cold winter months.
Look, I think it's a very convenient agreement for the staff. They had Eskom in a corner in terms of the management. But for us, the consumers, we can only hope that it at least alleviates our woes in terms of what we're going through with load shedding. And if that happens, I guess we can forgive them. But ultimately, the consumer pays for these wages.
Yeah. And a lot has also been spoken to, very quickly before we let you go, about of all the SOEs in the country, how Eskom already has the highest average when it comes to salaries. So, bringing even more question marks around how this actually really happened.
Look, it's going to be an expensive wage agreement to foot the bill. And as you said, amongst SOEs which are surviving, Eskom is the most generously paid staff complement. I think some of the lowest paid Eskom workers are about 15,000 rand per month. So it is a generous wage offer, but I think it was more to alleviate any further bad news around us facing any further challenges around load shedding with unhappy staff switching off or forgetting to switch on consumers after load shedding.
Yeah. Very well. Thank you so much for your time and weighing in on the discussion.